Before we get started, I'm traveling right now, and I'm just gonna admit that my ring light has been through hell and back. I don't know what I did to it, but it had a stand, and now look at it, just struggling. Like, I don't even know where the stand went. This is loose, but whatever. We'll figure it out. Traveling right now, and it's for a conference for work, but that doesn't mean that we still can't make videos. So I'm gonna make a video. And I've been thinking about, like, the video I made yesterday about, like, becoming a female Renaissance man, and you can check that out after this one or before. It's fine either way. But being like a Renaissance person or a polymath, basically, as a recap, means kind of doing multiple interests and having multiple hobbies and having a wide range of knowledge. Like, you know, a lot of different things. You may learn some different languages. You may have some artistic, tendencies. You might have things like that. And I guess this video is more so about not only just becoming one, but how. Because the how is definitely something that I recognize can be one of the hardest parts of it all. But the thing is, like, for me personally, I've always had an interest in learning, and that's helped a lot with wanting to learn more things. But a lot of us have full-time jobs. A lot of us have part-time jobs. We live in a very much gig economy. So you might have 40 hours, you might have 20 hours, you might be doing a lot. And this is coming from someone with a jam-packed schedule. Now, I don't have kids, because a lot of people will be like, oh, but you don't have kids. I understand. Kids add a whole nother layer to it. But coming from the perspective of someone who works around 70 hours a week, like, you probably wonder how you can find time to make these videos, make music, make art, find time to go to the gym, find free time, and find hobby time. And I can speak from my experience and what has worked for me. And in these 99 days of recording, I found that the best way for me to make time is to be intentional about it. And I think that's what a lot of people tend to say. Be intentional with your time. Think about what you're doing. I don't like that color. Let's go with that. Be intentional with your time. Like, all the productivity gurus and everything. But it really is so important. It's the reason why a lot of people say it. You have to make time for the things that you want. And that's something that I spend a lot of time doing. I basically block out some time, whether that's morning or evening, and I'm realistic. You don't get to spend as much time on your things as you want to sometimes. Sometimes you want to spend, 2 hours drawing or 2 hours working on music, but the day doesn't allow it. You have a bad day at work, or it runs long, or you have errands to do, or something comes up, and you don't get that 2 hours that you were expecting. But I think some people forget that a little bit is better than none at all. And so what I tend to do is, if I have a short day, just so I don't burn myself out and completely destroy my like for doing these videos and, figuring out what I want to do and everything, I have a few things that I do, and we're going to go through them. Number one is I'm not too hard on myself. If I know that it's going to be a long day, if I know that I'm not going to get out of work until 7, 8 o'clock, if I know that I'm traveling, my video may not be 10, 15, 20 minutes long. It might be 5, 6. I give myself some time. I give myself some leeway. And, I still spend some time on it, but I make a little bit of time, because making a little bit of time is better than making no time at all. And so to learn a lot of hobbies and have a lot of different interests, you have to make some time at some point. You can spend 20 minutes on this thing, or 10 minutes on that thing, or 40 minutes on this thing, and it can really help grow your skill set and your learning, and you're growing upon it. Because if you do things in bursts, chances are you won't really remember or gain the skill that you want at the level that you want to if you only do it for like a week and then you stop for 2. Then you do it for another week because you have time, and then you stop for 2 because you don't. If you can do it consistently but with a small amount of time, that's the way that you're going to be able to do it. That's how I even got started in music. I couldn't always do bursts. I would be happy if I could get 3, 4, 5 hours, but sometimes I couldn't, because I had class, I had school, I had tennis, I had work, and all those things kind of got in the way of my music time. But when I did have a block of time, I used it to my advantage. If I knew that I could wake up late the next day, I might work a little late. If I was waking up early, I would work on it a little early. And I do the same thing with these videos, with art, and anything else. I just spend a little bit of time, whether that's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, recording, editing. I even have a video on how I make videos in less than an hour, because I want to get better at it and I want to become efficient at it. And it's okay if it's an hour. It doesn't have to be 15, 20 hours of editing for me, because I'm doing more of an old school style YouTube approach. And that might not be what you do for your videos, but the way that I'm doing it is like, it's conducive to how I want to have my lifestyle. Now, some of them are a little more edited, some of them are not, but that's how I do it. Another thing that I do is I plan out like ideas and give myself a way to not really get writer's block, because writer's block can also stop you from growing if you're like, or creative block, like if you're an artist or you're a musician or you're anything like that. You might have bursts of time where you are just making songs, you're pumping through things, you are getting things done, and you're doing a great job at it. And then sometimes it can run dry, your well. And so if you have a book of ideas, kind of like I've shown before with like my book of ideas, with like my 365 day book and everything else, you can kind of pull from that when you lose inspiration, and you can use that to kind of build some discipline on your hobby. If you want to learn a language, but you kind of hit a block and the program that you're using isn't as good, you can have an idea book of different ways to study. You can do Anki, you can do, you can find like forums where people like talk to each other, like pen pals, digital pen pals, things like that. And you can learn that language. I learned Spanish incrementally, and it took me a while, but I finally got to it because I would find different resources when my one resource didn't work, or I was burned out on that resource, or I didn't have the inspiration or time to like kind of figure out more. So having that when you have the inspiration is super helpful, because when you have the inspiration and it hits you and you write it down and you put it somewhere that you're going to save it and be able to look back on it, then you have a bank of ideas from when you were inspired, and you can try them out when you're not. And that's one way that I've kind of worked on building more hobbies, more interests, and more of a skill set. And the last thing is being okay with not being super specialized in something right now. Like, even whatever you have going on, it tends to be that people get used to being super specialized in that thing, and they get used to writing that one genre or making that one genre of music or making that one style of art. But if you branch out, you might find that there's so many other interests and things that you can pull from, and you can test that in your outside free time and kind of rotate between hobbies so you don't burn out. That's what I do, at least, because if I can rotate between hobbies, if I can be more creative one place like one day or another place a different day, it can help with burnout and kind of dealing with that, because a lot of people struggle with burnout, and I was one of them. I struggled hard with burnout because music was the only thing I was focused on, and it was basically my main job for a while. And so when I became super burned out on it, I'm like, okay, how do I get back into it without making myself upset, without being super burned out? What do I do? And I realized that the best way to do it is to rotate your hobbies. And that made me gather more interests. I mean, I've always had an interest in tennis, I've always had an interest in chess, I've always had an interest in this and that. And so if I'm a little burned out on music, I might work on it a little bit in my allotted free time of like an hour, right? I might work on it like 10, 15 minutes. I'm like, I'm not really feeling it. I'll work on videos instead and work on videos the rest of the time. Or I'll work on videos, I'm making my one video for this day, but I really want to work on my art. Then I allocate less time to the videos and more time to the art, and I just rotate hobbies so that I don't feel so burned out. So that's kind of the ways that I'm figuring out how to rotate multiple interests, rotate multiple hobbies, and become a well-rounded Renaissance man, polymath, and someone who, goes for all these interests and posts them here, because a lot of people are scared to not have a niche channel. I just can't. And maybe that might hurt my growth, and maybe it won't. But it's one of those things where I don't really care, because it would be inauthentic for me to say that I specialize in something and that's all I do. Even my music, it's multiple genres. It doesn't really fit into one box. So I couldn't really put myself in one box that way. Even like my college degrees and what I focused on and what I've learned is so spread out. It's spread wide. And so I want to document that journey. So that's kind of the ways that I go about, reducing burnout, having multiple hobbies. And it's how I'm going to go in the future of getting through art, learning how to do more art, learning how to learn Mandarin. I was teaching myself Mandarin for a little bit, and I kind of dropped off, and it was something I want to do. And Portuguese. I'm kind of debating between Mandarin or Portuguese. I started Portuguese and I started Mandarin. See, this is also the problem if you are someone who has a lot of interests, is prioritizing which ones are important. And the one that's hard for me is language. I can prioritize everything else, but I love languages, so I love learning more stuff. But Yeah, it's something that I'll have to prioritize in my book, and that's something you may have to do too. You might have to prioritize what hobbies you want to spend the most time on and rotate them as you see fit. If you find that you're getting kind of burned out, make another one a priority. It's a living list. It doesn't have to be the same every time. But that's kind of how I handle having multiple hobbies, and I hope that it helps you out because having multiple hobbies is fun. But don't stress yourself out. I'll see you tomorrow.